And let me do one more thing, which is the captions. All righty. So I'm going to go ahead and do our basic intro that we usually do. That's right. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Good. So for those of you who aren't familiar with CARC, we are the Campus Research Computing Consortium. It's just an organization advancing the frontiers of research by improving the effectiveness of RCD professionals, including their career development and visibility, which is a big thing that I care about, and their ability to deliver services and resources for researchers. Basically, it's a community coming together to share and do better at what we all do. The core of CARC in many ways, the heart and soul, is the People Network, which is just a year-round online conference that aims to foster, build, and grow an inclusive community for campus CI professionals. We support research computing and data resources and the researchers who use them. The network includes synchronous and asynchronous opportunities. So this is one of the synchronous ones. We also record all these things. They're organized into the tracks you see here, and it's open to everybody. You'll see that for those of you who aren't familiar with the facings, it's just a way that we use to organize the way we talk about our work, and it's divided into these general ones. We also have some tracks that aren't directly associated with facings, like the Emerging Centers track. As people think up things that they think are really important to bring people together and talk about, we're open to adding new tracks. One of the things you'll note is we don't have a software facing track because the research software engineers has got a great group and a great community that had lots of cool discussions, including their upcoming new conference. They're holding a conference this year. So if you don't know about that, I definitely encourage you to check it out. You can just search for USRSC and you'll find out more about it. So the Campus Research Computing Organization, as I mentioned, is this organization to advance what we're doing. It includes the People Network as well as these other areas. We have working groups that actually develop different products, share best practices and try to document them and produce tools to help everybody out. We also have interest groups, which are a lighter weight organization of folks who are coming together to discuss and explore an idea. Sometimes those spawn working groups, sometimes they just continue a discussion. And there, again, if you've got an idea for one, you're welcome to get that started. There's a couple of really active ones going on right now that are actually spawning out work groups and other activities to produce resources. And then, of course, there's some operations groups that support the work that we do overall. So if you're interested, you're definitely welcome and very much encouraged to get involved. You can always engage more with the People Network. You can write to these email addresses to get engaged in a working group or to propose new activities. You can also just join the mailing list and lurk and see what, and just listen in on what's going on. And you're welcome anywhere you want. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And today, oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I missed my own slide about the topic today. Sorry. Let's try that again. Okay. I forgot to mention in particular that this track wouldn't be able to be anything like what it is without all the commitment and contributions of our steering committee, the folks here that I really want to thank. Up until this point, throughout the beginning of this track, I have been working with Melissa Cragen, who's now at Rice. She's on the call today, and she's been helping co-coordinate this. It's been a ton of work, and I can't thank her enough for her work. She's had to decide that it's time to let somebody else take over, although she's continuing in her role on the steering committee. And Amit Amrikar at Penn State, who, as I said, wasn't able to join today, he's disappointed about that, has stepped up and is willing to be the new co-coordinator. I want to thank the rest of the folks on this list. And in particular, I want to note Susan Ivey, who has stepped in and volunteered to join us and help bring some new ideas. I appreciate she's got a background in the libraries, which is a great additional perspective in our community. If anyone else is interested in helping to shape the topics and the discussions we have on this track, we strongly encourage you to write to us. You can, on the website of carc.org, you can navigate through and you'll find out a place with our emails. Or you can just put it into the chat if you're interested, and we would welcome other involvement to help us with this stuff. We're still working on the discussions that we're going to have next time in September. But today's talk really is just a community discussion about what we saw at PEARC for those of us who were there, and perhaps some questions and other observations from the folks who weren't able to go. If you've got ideas or comments on what you think is important or what really struck you when you were there, please do share those. This is an open discussion. I've tagged a few people to ask them in particular to think about this, but we want everybody to be involved in the discussion today. Okay, now I've actually finished the slides and we can start the discussion.
Well, Patrick, I'll start. Catherine Kelly Cask. I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, and maybe this is the purview of the PEARC platform, that a number of NSF program officers attend, but it seemed as if there was a larger contingency this year.
I would agree, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see them there, also including at Nexus Day, where we had folks sitting in on some of the workshops on Sunday, which was an extra commitment from them. But I was really pleased, and I thought the panel, I think that was Wednesday morning, was also really, really interesting. And I appreciated the fact that the incoming head of our division, which I won't say because I'll get it wrong, somebody can help me with that. She was scratching her head about CI as the term for what we do, which is something that I've tripped over because so many people conflate it with cybersecurity. But I thought that was really cool, Catherine. Did you actually get a chance to talk to any of them? Or?
I did get a chance to talk with Katie. Is it Antipas? She and that CI nomenclature was confusing to her too, and I said that she's not alone. So, you know, I was really excited that they wanted to engage and that they were so present. I mean, even not only in the plenary, but in the in some of the breakout sessions.
And I would say that their presentation for the plenary was really nice, and some of the other ones where they were really sort of outlining what they're expecting. I think that was a very powerful move, basically, as to looking at policy. And who was it? Was that the CASC leadership, where talking about getting involved in policy is sort of that thing that is a good thing to do.
Was that the Monday workshop?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
And it was very good.
I wasn't able to attend that. How was that?
Oh, good. I'm glad. We ended up having to make some very last minute shifts because the general counsel at NSF was concerned about all of the NSF program officers who were present during the week being involved with that one as well. So I think they hit their saturation point. But we had a great keynote from Dan Steinberg, where it was just outlining his professional life from the very beginning, and then our panel with John Towns, and we had I'm going to forget everybody that was on there. Somebody help me.
So Doug Genuine,
Yep.
was on the panel.
Carol.
Tabitha
Yep.
Samuel. And
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Yep.
John Towns.
Yep.
Right, and John. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm blanking on everybody, but yeah, Tabitha and Doug were the institutional CI leaders, and God, now I'm blanking. Anyway, the others were national CI leaders.
Yep.
Right, and yeah, so that whole session was fantastic, and I just sort of speaking to the getting involved with the policy. So I love the part about, you know, Dan talking about being a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow, that's a program. I mean, if anybody's interested, there's a shorter one that happens at AAAS at the National Academies as well. And that's something, if anybody ever on this call is interested, it's something I have experience with as well. And I'd be happy to talk about that opportunity and the benefits to doing that.
Right. And we are submitting a request to NSF for a full day CI Leadership Academy workshop expected in the spring.
Yeah, I appreciated the short version of it because it gave a tasting of all the pieces, but I could definitely see the benefit of a 1 or 2 day session to really expand out and work that because I think that was a nice overview and a really good representation.
Cool. What other sessions did people attend that they thought were interesting? Were there, did anybody go to any of the other workshops or tutorials?
I can speak real quick. This was my first attendance for a PEARC conference. And I think what I got most out of it was the Sunday RCD Nexus Day workshop. That was really a good shop for me, learning about the capabilities assessment tool. And
Okay, so you came to that one?
yeah, I
Yeah.
went to that one. That was the capabilities tool, and
Yeah.
definitely plan on bringing that here to OSU and start that process here. And I also like the access overview workshop that I went to as well. So I was very familiar with Exceed, and then Access was just a strange land to me. And then after going through that workshop, Access seems very comfortable now, and I can start working with that.
That's great. That's great to hear. Who here went to the staff and student workshop on Sunday as part of Nexus Day? You want to talk about that a little bit? I didn't get to go because I was at the other one.
Yeah, it was a great discussion about onboarding and sort of what do you need to look for new people, both professional and student. I think there was some great discussion on sort of like tenets and mission of like how to indoctrinate that in the group, in the work group and things like that. So I think it was a great overview and sort of refresher from a managerial point of view of how to do that. It was really nice.
Claire, I hate to put you on the spot, but what were your, given that you were one of the organizers of that, how did you feel when, and what did you kind of learn? Because I know as organizers, we often learn a lot of these things too.
So it's interesting. I always say that it's very hard for me to have any judgment on the session when I'm part of the organizing team, because I'm in the weeds or I'm all over the place. But I did feel like we tried to transition from the topic was onboarding, and instead of just trying to come away with a laundry list of things, we really tried to dig in to being purposeful and intentional with the hiring and with how you bring people into their understanding of your program and how to move it forward. And I think people were engaged, which was nice. It was a little bit of a gamble because, I think people, sometimes you just want a laundry list of give me the 57,000 things that I need to check off to get this person onboarded. So I hope we made some progress. There's a lot of engagement, and we've got a lot of fodder for future calls, which is nice.
Oh, what kind of things came up that you realized you wanted to keep talking about? Sorry, I know you weren't prepared for this.
Right.
I wonder if you had any impression.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think people talked a lot about those details and the kinds of places where like resources for generally speaking, and then specifically down to, you know, like a systems facing person. How do you onboard and how do you get them into the culture of a systems facing? Unfortunately, I didn't get to hear a lot of the discussions at each of the tables. So I'm sure that maybe others maybe had some more, some different perspectives on that.
And I think it was good to have the different levels of the one person shop to the full, you know, massive teams. And I think we actually teased out some of the commonalities, which I think was reaffirming as to everybody's sort of facing these things. And it was reaffirming for me of like, okay, yeah, these are things we need to pay attention to on the onboarding.
Were some of those ideas captured? It sounds like a really interesting discussion. It'd be, even if they were scrabbled notes, it'd be fun to see some of that stuff.
Yeah, so we were fortunate. Bob Freeman helped Tom take general notes. Some of the individual tables took notes of their discussions and added it to our kind of the documents from the workshop. And then we tried to do and kind of engaging exercises for everything. So we've got, you know, kind of the sticky notes with the, you know, on the Post-its, on the big posters from the walls and stuff. And so we've got pictures of all of that. And so we really want to, before too long, capture that and figure out, take out of that kind of running themes that we need to delve into further.
Okay, cool. One of the things I was glad to hear you say was that you had a mix of different programs, different sizes and sort of developmental stages, if you will, of different programs. That was one of the things that in the CAPS model workshop, we've been running workshops in the past couple of years that were focused more on practices around strategic planning and strategic thinking and stuff. And we hadn't done an introduction to the model in a while, since Claire and a number of us did one at EDUCAUSE 19, basically. And so we thought it was time to do that again, partly based upon feedback that we heard from the community. And we also took a bit of a risk, like Claire was saying, with we didn't want to be othering anyone, but we thought it might be helpful to gather programs together roughly in terms of the kind of focus they had. And it didn't mean that, so we said, let's have the super big R1s sit at one table, and then we had, you know, folks in between, and then we had the smaller and emerging programs, or people who were interested in engaging with smaller and emerging programs. And we had a TCU there and a couple of other really smaller programs, and we wanted to make sure that they felt they weren't just getting overwhelmed by the discussions among R1s who've got a different set of problems than a tribal college does. And it turned out to be really interesting, like you were saying, Claire, that and like Kirk was saying, that there were some issues that are common to everybody. They feel different and they manifest differently on different kinds of campuses, but some of the same kinds of issues of you know, how do you gather the right people together when you're trying to do an assessment and preparing to take stock of what you're doing and what you want to do. So I think it's great that we're managing to get to institutions beyond the R1s, and I was personally pleased that we had a lot of folks there, and that they seemed to get a lot out of the discussion as well. So that was cool. What else did people, in terms of papers or sessions or things like that, was there anything, or some of the other keynotes, were there any something that people really liked or really struck by as part of the program?
I was very happy with the access people who had multiple sessions, looking at how they could do better, how to make the reach better. I think one was access, the other was OAC, and I think that was it started blending together. But one of the things I mentioned is maybe we should be looking at the lower end research expenditure groups to start poking at them and saying, why aren't you using these services, and how can we do better for you? Because, you know, the R1s have it. The people who know about it have it, but doing a little more down, going down farther in the loop. And I was very happy to see Access really paying attention and taking notes of how they can make their world better.
I want to follow up on what Kirk said, and in particular on the MSCC BOF. I don't know if anyone else participated in that. I thought that was really enlightening, and the just even the process by which we went through that session, crowdsourcing some of the ideas that could be used for future PEARC and RCD activities. You know, we were separated out into different groups. I might need some more help on the memory, but I know it was finance and then communication. I think there was something related to strategy. I'm not remembering all 4 groups. But we ultimately came up with some top ideas in real time. And one of those, the number one was, and I think this is advisable for all groups involved in this environment, is developing some plain language approaches to PEARC and RCD for a broader audience, and then establish a more formal mentor-mentee program before and after PEARC. The third one was travel grants to provide stipends for other costs such as childcare. I was really excited because that was my idea, and then testimonials on the ROI from MSI participants. Those were the top 4.
Not to point out an obvious one here, but I thought the keynote from DK Panda was super profound, because I think it highlighted the need to provide easier to use interfaces for research computing. And I think that's a conversation that needs to continue happening, and having a keynote put emphasis on that. And then the idea, I forget, what was it? I know the idea was the computing continuum. I think that was the kind of the concept he introduced in terms of this new era of research computing, where graphical tools are going to need to be a component. And what I enjoyed about the context of not just that keynote, but kind of the entire conference, was it's less of a focus on providing graphical tools and ease of use tools to cater to, let's say, a specific domain that maybe isn't traditional users, etc. That language wasn't really used. It was more about, let's create accessible tools so that everybody can make use of them because they're easier to use. It was less about, if you don't have a computer science background, you need an easier tool. It seems like this conference was a bit of a watershed moment, and that we've kind of moved past that. And now we're just focusing on easier tools for all.
It's an interesting perspective. Having done a lot of work with digital humanities folks, just giving them better access to a cluster isn't, I don't think is sufficient, but I think it's a really good point.
Hey, I'll just pipe up. So first, I wanted to, Claire, your session on the onboarding was really great. I really enjoyed myself that day. I'm actually onboarding a new person for the first time in a while this week or next week, and so it was super helpful to kind of get perspectives from everybody. And I think the activities were really well planned. There was a ton of discussion, and we've kind of went over this already, but I felt like the diversity of opinions was really great. And I feel like moving forward, what I would really like to see out of it is kind of a prioritization of some of these tasks that we came up with, because you only have so many days in the onboarding process, and we came up with a lot of things that don't really fit in like that one day that are really important. And so a way to prioritize like all of these onboarding tasks would be for me, I think super helpful, so I can make my own little like checklist of what's like important on day one, week one, and like month one might be good time frames, you know, for like when to address these things. The other thing, what session I really liked was the barn raising session from the Oklahoma folks. It was basically around like how they brought together a lot of the smaller institutions in the state to share CI resources and build a network with, you know, University of Oklahoma and Oklahoma State kind of anchoring the whole deal. And just kind of like the organicness of the creation was really interesting to hear about. And it was also kind of, it felt good that, you know, because it didn't seem like it was heavy handed. So it felt like it was something that we could all do in our own states with some effort and some, you know, embracing the organicness of the process. And so I really like that talk.
I participated in the student mentor program, and that was quite nice. The students were very active and had a great discussion during the networking event with a number of them. So that was good. A lot of very sharp young people coming up through the ranks.
Catherine, were you talking about, when you were talking about, I was taking some notes when you were talking about some of the suggestions around inclusivity and things. Was that from the MSCC session Tuesday afternoon?
Yes.
Yeah, that was one that I really enjoyed as well. Partly just listening, you know, hearing ideas from folks about, okay, what would make a difference in terms of engaging more minority and small institution and first timers and things like that. But I thought a lot of really good ideas came out of that I think would improve PEARC and make it, you know, open to a broader set of people, which we need in terms of growing the community and supporting some of these institutions. So.
Right. I think it's easily adaptable to any of our organizations, what came out of that. So I definitely am going to take some of that to our, we have a positions group on expanding the research ecosystem, you know, broadening that, and some of the ideas there, I think would be well received by that positions work group.
Yeah. Susan, can I twist your arm to share from your perspective what you got out of PEARC?
Yeah, sure. So I attended the Nexus Day, the staff onboarding session, which I enjoyed. I don't know what else to add from what everybody's already said about that session, but I appreciated the conversations around just, you know, how different people are getting their staff onboarded at their universities, like sharing, you know, thoughts and ideas like outside of traditional just HR onboarding. But I think, you know, one thing that came out of that was we had these posters, you know, up, and everybody was supposed to put up tasks, sort of like very action oriented tasks, like meet with IT governance, or like depending on if you're strategy and policy, or if you're data facing or systems facing. And then we had like a catch-all, and that poster was like for anybody, regardless of facing, was completely covered. And then the others had, you know, some had like maybe 15. I think the policy had like 3 sticky notes on it or something. So I think just highlighting that some of these onboarding tasks that we're talking about goes across the RCD facings. And then there are, you know, are fewer that are very specific. And I think drilling into those specifics will be interesting for the folks that are sort of either supervising or onboarding, you know, those specific types of roles in their teams. And then I enjoyed, I'm looking at my notes too, sorry. I enjoyed Suzanne Pierce's talk at the opening remarks on Tuesday. I really enjoyed the conversation there. I think it sort of relates to what was said previously about sort of getting people onto the infrastructure and breaking down barriers. She was talking a lot about transinterdisciplinary research, bringing teams that aren't traditional backgrounds for computing together and what's necessary in order to get that work done. So I liked that talk. I also attended the reproducibility of computational research, which was a second discussion from last year's PEARC. And I was at the first one. And I enjoyed that conversation too. Obviously, you mentioned my background in libraries. So libraries got a lot of shout outs there. But thinking from a data perspective of reproducibility, I think there's a lot of tensionality around the understanding in the libraries for reproducibility and fair data, and bringing the RCD folks, particularly the RC folks, in with the data folks, thinking in terms of reproducibility. There's a lot of work already out in the field. I think that the speakers were really aware of it, but I think it's good to have that conversation in a venue like PEARC. So those were kind of my impressions. My team did share out yesterday about their impressions. A lot of folks really enjoyed the Campus Champion session, which was a half-day workshop. Yeah, so.
Did others of the folks who went and had several people from their campus go? I don't know if there's any of those folks who are like that here. Did you have discussions among your teams afterwards? And what came out of those discussions?
So we actually, so yeah, I had, including me, there were 5 of us there. So it's been a while actually since we've had that kind of representation at PEARC. So just having that happen is a good, is a good step forward, a good start. Get the team engaged with the community, the professional community. We haven't had our team readout yet here. It's scheduled. It's that time of year. Everybody's on vacation or whatever. So we've scheduled a brown bag briefing for the whole team so that we can share what we did there. We had one of our team actually was in the visualization demo. So demoed some work there in the digital humanities, which was great. The team was sort of separated out in terms of what they did. For example, our lead on our enclave system was there. And so trying to learn about sort of what else is going on in the controlled unclassified information space for data and compute. For me, I went to a couple of the sessions. I missed the Nexus day, so hopefully next year I'll be able to get there. But I spent a bulk of my time actually meeting with people about projects, collaborations. I needed to meet a lot of the vendors. And so for me, this conference was a little different than my normal PEARC conference. I will just say it is my favorite conference these days. So I really look forward to going. And I spent a lot of time both talking to people from the national labs and then also a lot of the new vendors that were there. And they may not be new to some of you, but some of these groups, like for me, Weka and Starfish, these are new groups for me. And so learning about some of these things, because we're piloting a couple of things out now. And so it was important for me to spend some time talking to those folks. So anyway, that was my experience and the team. Shout out to my digital humanities team here. John Mulligan leads that for the CRC, but we have other people on campus, and they co-won the visualization award with some other folks. So that was great. And yeah, so that's where we are. I think it was a really fruitful conference for the team, and sort of reinvigorated some activities we'll be having here. So thanks.
Congrats to the team for that honor. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Cheers.
For those of you who couldn't go, what were the reasons where, I mean, I know some folks had personal reasons they couldn't go, others might not have had travel funding. Are there those of you who just weren't sure if it would be worthwhile or not? And do you have any questions to those of us who've been going sometimes about why you might go?
I'll be happy to speak up on that. I didn't really understand what the meeting was about until I talked with some people at the Great Plains networking meeting in May. And it was kind of too late for me to schedule this meeting for this summer, but I am definitely interested in attending next year. Is it known where it's going to be held next year?
I had to leave a little early. I know that, because I'm also on the steering committee for PEARC, and I know that they were trying to get a decision up to the end, but they were dealing with some of the details of
enough.
the issues. So I don't know that they were able to make an announcement.
No, they-
We're not at the wrap-up session at the end on Friday or Thursday rather. They said that they did not have a final decision on the 2024 location yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
The closest they got was Midwest or East Coast, so they could mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think they, in general, the attempt is to spread the pain on travel. And so they do alternate a little bit. But I know that, just as an aside, one of the issues that they're working really hard on is ensuring that wherever they locate it, that everybody in the community feels welcome in that location and feels like it's a place that they're comfortable going and attending. And so that's been one of the biggest considerations, and frankly has narrowed the field a little bit. But then there's also, we're getting big enough at this point that it's not easy to find a place that can easily accommodate us, because we're big enough to be much bigger than most hotels, but not as big as taking over a whole convention center. I thought it was actually kind of cool that in Portland, we were sharing the convention center with another group. I haven't seen that too often. So, but yeah, I would, Maureen, I'm glad you joined us, and I would definitely encourage you to try to make it next year. It's a lot of people for a long time saw PEARC, and others can jump in on this impression. My impression is, for a while, PEARC was foremost a gathering place for the community. It was a chance to see folks around the country doing work like what we do, across a range of institutions, and learning a lot, just making connections and learning a lot. I think over time, the aspect of being a publishing venue for peer-reviewed work in our domain has become more important. I like to think it's equally important, because I love meeting the community, but I feel really strongly that it's very helpful for folks in the profession to have experience doing peer-reviewed papers, posters, panels, whatever, partly because it's the coin of the realm for the researchers we work with, but also because it's a really good experience in terms of contextualizing the work that we're doing and going through that same kind of experience. So,
well, and I would add to that, one of the things that the researchers we work with give a lot of credence to is peer-reviewed publications. And if we as a community are not producing peer-reviewed publications, that is a perfectly good excuse for them to ignore us.
yeah, exactly. Well said, Ernie. Aaron, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in as a first-time attendee and kind of support that statement, Patrick, and just kind of encourage anyone who hasn't attended to if you're able to really attend, because this is my first time attending as well, and I am sort of in this new position, transitioning from a career in libraries, and I think I wasn't quite sure what I would find at PEARC. I'd heard a lot of great things, but I think initially I was very just generally nervous about, like, well, I don't even know who I'm going to know. And then the irony of that is the first person I saw when I walked in was Susan. I was like, oh, okay, well, at least I know one person. So that element was just nice, of that you just see people that are sort of in a related profession. And so that helps. But then on top of that, I think there was a nice mix of sessions that sort of stretched my comfort in terms of, more on the computing side, more technical, but then also ones that I felt, very much I could see the angle, of in my role contributing to. And honestly, with these conferences, one of the best things is really that reaffirmation that we're all sort of struggling with very similar issues across a variety of institutions, and being able to kind of commiserate, but then also problem solve at a large level was really positive for me. So yeah, definitely plus one to the conference, and happy to talk with anyone, directly who's interested in first time attendance. So.
Well, I'm really glad you had that experience. Of course, it's ironic that, I had to meet Aaron in Portland instead of here in Berkeley, where we both live and where I used to work. But it was nice to meet you, Aaron. Claire, you've got your hand up.
So in support of all that Aaron said and what Jackie or what Susan has put in the chat, It was interesting talking to one of my members of my team. This was her second time. And last year in Boston, she very much enjoyed the sessions, but was commented on how I was like I had so much energy because I was meeting with people and talking to people and, you know, getting to see old friends in person. And I think she didn't quite understand that. And then this year coming, she couldn't stop talking about how she made a bunch of connections and she got to talk to people that she had been seeing on all of these calls throughout the year. And on top of that, she went to some really great sessions. And so I think that for folks who are just dipping their toe in, there is a huge foundation of good sessions and sessions that are backed by papers, as Patrick and Henry talked about. But I think you'll start to get into the community piece of this with each returning kind of participation in the annual conference.
Yeah, it's a nice welcoming community. There's oh, I see Jackie typed some notes into the chat. I also see that Jennifer Fowler's on the call. At least she was. Did I just lose her?
I am.
Oh, there you are. You know what? The screen rearranges, and then when it turns on their video, it's like, wait, where did she go? So
Got to keep it interesting a little bit with the Brady Bunch. I think we're all getting a little tired of the Brady Bunch vibes, but yeah, good to see everybody. This is my first call that I have joined with CARC, and I will say, based on that was my first time at PEARC. I was super glad to see familiar faces that are mostly on this call that I had met in the other Portland, Maine, which was kind of fun to be able to joke about because we saw each other from Portland to Portland at the EPSCoR conference. For those of y'all that don't know me, I'm Jennifer Fowler. I'm the director for Arkansas National Science Foundation EPSCoR. And our Track 1 project is all data science, AI, ML, and we've been heavily investing in cyber infrastructure. And so I've gotten a little more involved since I got promoted into this role. And I was very glad that you guys were there because honestly, I don't know a lot of people in the community, and I did really feel like quite a bit of an outsider. I wasn't able to come early and go to any of the workshops. So I think if I had been able to do that, I might have gotten more acclimated or kind of incorporated into the group. I mean, everyone I met was super nice, but I didn't feel like there was a lot of, it kind of felt cliquey, I guess, in a way, just because like I said, I don't have the long CI and computing background, and I'm really coming at it just to learn more about the community and see what some of the challenges are and see what solutions we can bring forward or how we can collaborate or what solutions we can incorporate to address our challenges, because I think a lot of us are dealing with the same kind of issues. So yeah, I really enjoyed the CARC town hall, and I mean, I did a lot of the sessions that were focused on broadening participation and met some interesting, collaborators through some of our education and outreach programs potentially, but so yeah, that was but it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the content that I saw. I also really liked the opening plenary. Suzanne, I can't remember her name. That was really cool talk. So.
And I'm glad you mentioned, Jennifer, that initial impression, the feeling of, when you're new to a community and you're trying to figure out where to join in. And Catherine talked a little bit about that topic, which especially for younger folks or for folks who are not as well represented in our community for all different reasons, all different aspects of their work, figuring out how to do a better job of welcoming those people in and engaging them from the beginning, orienting them more. There's some conferences, CNI, the Coalition for Networked Information, which brings together library and other college leadership, has a really nice session the evening before their main meetings that is just for first-time attendees. And it's really about, okay, how do you even navigate this? And, how should you think about approaching being here? And ideas like that, as well as a number of others were brought up that it's the flip side of it being a great community gathering place, that for those of us who have known each other for a while, we can't wait to see our friends and, and get together and see them. But sometimes we forget to, pick out the people who are new faces and make sure that we drag them in, and that, we have to learn to be more intentional about that.
I mean, some people did. And, so I know Jeff Pummel really well. I mean, he was the general chair and he introduced me to a lot of people when I saw him, and I met some vendors and stuff, which I normally don't have a lot of engagement with. So that was kind of nice. And yeah, I mean, it was all good. The first time attendee stuff, like, I have organized ACM conferences before, and I've hosted those first time attendee sessions. And so it's less like, I think that's really important for people who haven't attended just a lot of professional or scientific conferences in general. And it's more kind of how to do, networking. Usually, I didn't get to attend this one. Usually it's like how to network and, how to approach people, what kind of, conversations might be had. But it really wasn't that aspect that was intimidating. It was like I said, the kind of clickiness or the, lots of jargon everywhere. Like I was reading through the agenda and the program, and I'm like, I don't even know what a lot of these sessions like mean. I'm just going to go try to figure it out and see. I don't think that there were very clear. Some of them were not very clear. So just that kind of stuff, like the jargon and the lingo, the relationships. But that was kind of what I was there to learn about. So
that's great feedback. Claire, you a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. I was so happy to see you, by the way. And look forward to talking with you further. But I was going to say the same thing that Susan Ivy put in chat, that we definitely had some other groups that have put PEARC as a priority, and by providing participant funding toward it. There's a research SOC, the Research Security Operations Center out of Indiana, had some funds left over in one of their grants, and they funded some people out of the cybersecurity profession to attend, and they were first-time attendees. So I'm hoping that this is a trend that we're seeing, Access and some of these other places that are providing first attendee funds to attend. I know that we did that as well from the Nexus. So I hope we can continue that.
I was just going to add Claire to that. I was going to type it in chat, but in the future, y'all may consider, Patrick, since you're on the committee, going after some NSF EPSCoR funding for travel support for people from EPSCoR jurisdictions and MSIs. We've done that in the past. So when we hosted the SSTI conference in Little Rock, we got an EPSCoR workshop award, supplemental award to bring, like we used all of it just for travel stipends. They're very amenable to stuff like that. And they want, EPSCoR and underrepresented institutions to be present and, participate in these conversations. It's not very difficult to get the workshop award, but it is kind of I'm in the middle of writing my final report and outcomes report and everything. There's some reports, but it can help get a lot of people there. And it's reviewed internally at the EPSCoR office if it's under 50 grand. So
yeah, we've done workshop proposal like that before. And as you say, it's a relatively low bar. I hadn't thought about using it that way. That's a really nice idea. And
the program officer that's in charge of it now is reasonably new to the EPSCoR program at NSF. And at our recent conference, he indicated that he would be open to considering kind of revamped application processes if you want to use an award specifically for travel support. So you're not really asking for funds for, conference expenses or something like that. If you want to use it directly for travel support, then Pinhas Binsfee is the program officer. He indicated he'd be open to just having some conversations with folks about it. So
Jennifer, would you mind?
I'd be happy to help with that.
If you could just write that name down in the notes, that would help me a lot. But yeah, that'd be great. I will definitely bring that back to the steering committee as an idea. And I love the specificity of that, because as Catherine mentioned, the feedback was echoed, and there's ideas like that, but having a very specific proposal like that is really helpful when I go back to the steering committee. So we're coming up near the top of the hour. I want to make sure that anybody who hasn't had a chance to speak up and has been gathering their nerve to unmute and say something, this is your chance. Please do so, even if it's just to echo what you've heard otherwise. I could start calling on people. I see my friend Jay Shri is on the call. Do you have anything to add, Jay Shri? Or are you busy as usual? Oh, perhaps she's having audio issues.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't unmute myself with my headphone. I didn't go to PEARC this year because we had budget cuts and we were told I have to pick 2 people to go. And so I decided I've been going to this PEARC conference for so long. I really enjoy meeting people and learning things. I decided I'll send 2 of the other people so they also, start making networking and, getting some idea about it. And I really like PEARC more than I do supercomputing because it's much smaller and you have wonderful papers, buffs, panel, all the sessions are great. And I feel terrible to have missed it, but I had a choice to make. And I did that because I really want to give the newer people in my office a chance to go and interact with others.
I think that's great. I'm sure it echoes some of the ideas that were in the workshop on Sunday on onboarding, introducing people to the community. Did you hear at all from the folks that you sent what their impressions were of it?
I did hear they really liked the RCD Nexus Day. They came back with lots of great ideas on how we can, onboard our new interns if we get funding. But they really liked the conference. I know they told me that they attended some other sessions and they got a lot out of it too. I don't know if they met any of the vendors, but I did specifically ask them about the RCD Nexus Day because that was one of the things we're hoping to benefit from.
Oh, good. Well, that's nice feedback too. So, anything else in the closing moments?
I'm excited to talk about, next steps, and Claire would be happy to set up a meeting. There's a lot of stuff that we talked about in the town hall that I thought was cool. And I just don't know yet which communities are appropriate for which conversations, but I think we had some cool ideas that I'm excited to follow up on.
Yeah, I mean, it's all one community. And there's lots of overlap among the different tracks and activities and stuff. So yeah. Bring it up anywhere and we'll see if we can rally more people to get involved, which is always helpful. So, well, thanks.
Probably need a bigger room for the town hall, the CARC town hall.
Hey, it was better than last year.
There.
It was way better than last year, I can say that. So we keep on making the pitch. So, and I thought it was a pretty good room this year, but yeah, it was interesting how many sessions, not just the town hall, were standing room only, which was really cool. There's so much enthusiasm for all the different topics and different papers and everything. I thought that was really cool. Thanks very much to everybody for joining, participating in the discussion. It's really cool to hear all the different impressions and share around the different talks. I know I'm going to be following up as soon as they post things and going back and reading more of the papers. There's a whole lot of really good stuff there. So, and I would encourage everybody else to do that. And with that, I will say thanks and goodbye until next month. We will send out an announcement as soon as we've nailed down the topic for that. And hope to see you all in September.